Welcome back, everybody. We're doing something stupid today, which is talk about records. And as you can see, there's a lot of them. They have finally arrived. There's 3 records in this, like 3 pressings in there. Each of them is 300 copies. There's Cardinal's Folly, Holocaust of Ecstasy and Freedom, Mark the H.P. Lovecraft reference. There is Olorin, Through Shadow and Flame, Mark the numerous Tolkien references. And there's Purification over there, Perfect Doctrine, Mark the anti-Christian references there. They're not in favor of the church. So they just arrived, and I thought I'll just talk a bit about it, and then we'll carry them up, and then have some more on like how it actually works in a small-time record label when vinyl arrives. So let's do that. Cheers. This shit's heavy. Alright, so here we are. Everything is upstairs, and this is one of those boxes. We'll open them professionally with a key instead of a knife, because that's the kind of person I am. Here we go. And inside is 2 other boxes with vinyls. Take one of them out, put the box aside, sort of. And as you can see, when we open them, there's a pile of records in there. But there's no inlays. There's just records. Like this. So we need inlays, and we print them separately because that's cheaper. Yes, you can get that pre-assembled in your factory, but we don't have the money for that. So what we do is we order them at a printer and get another box. So we take this one and professionally open it with a key instead of a knife. Which works really well, I'm just saying. Or we use violence instead, because, you know, this is heavy metal anyway. What we find inside is yet more paper. And a pack of, well, paper. We throw this away, take this one, throw away the invoice because fuck the tax office, and tear this apart with violence because, you know. Open it up. We find a pile of inlays in there. Now there's 300 records. There's supposed to be 350 inlays because we want to have some spares in case something goes wrong. Did that work out? I don't think so, because someone thought that this, I ordered 350, this is more like 1,000 inlays, which is ridiculous, but this is how economy works. Fucking capitalism, I'm just saying. Anyway, now what we do now, in like proper fashion, is we take an inlay, we put it into a vinyl, and we do that 300 times. And then we do it 300 times more, and another 300 times because we have like 3 pressings, so that's 900 vinyls. So if you want to know what I've been doing all day, that's basically it. And that's, well, you know, that's what we call artisanal record label business. So for Cardinals Folly, since it is a re-release, we figured that we'll take like a poster as a bonus, you know, to have something new. And since this is a professional label, we figured we'll hire a professional poster folder, trained in everything.
Professional? How about a professional working environment? You know, tree-lined posters, a chill beer pipeline? Or how about a fucking table?
Well, you know, there's still some complications, but we're ironing them out, so, yeah. Welcome back. So this is the explanation part, I guess. It's also a re-recording because I fucked up and accidentally deleted some of the footage. So I'm re-recording this a couple of days later, but this is still sort of, you know, the part where I talk a bit more about what makes vinyl pressings and, you know, all the sadness that goes into that. So let's do that, shall we? Cheers. So yeah, you've seen the boxes, you've seen part of the preparation of taking them apart, putting like the lyrics inserts in, folding the posters, all of that crap. And what you get in the end is something like this, a package. And I brought one, and we'll talk a bit about that. And then I'll talk a bit about each band and a bit about the overall problems with vinyl these days and what, you know, makes vinyl fun but also problematic. Now what you get if you get one of these packages is, I'll hold it this way, you open it up, and there's vinyls in there. Now this is not how they will be packed normally. I just put them in here to bring them out on the balcony. So we'll take out the purification one, and we'll take out the Olorin one, and what you find in here, this is how your vinyl will be packed. By which I mean, it will come in one of those protective sleeves, plastic, taken apart with the poster and the inlay and the sleeve, the outer sleeve, and the vinyl. Now you can go and admire the wonderful color of this purification Cardinals Folly vinyl, which is gloriously magenta. Obviously, you don't hold vinyl like that either. This is just my personal copy of the album, and I'll just, you know, put it back in here. Now, you may ask yourself, why, if I buy a vinyl, will it be shipped in, like, components? Is this, like, IKEA? No, it has a very simple reason. Now, the problem that you have when you ship vinyl is that this disc, this part, is pretty fucking heavy and has a bit of an edge to it. And this part is glued together, like, I guess you can't really see it, but this is basically glued together here. So you have these seams, and if your package is, you know, tossed around by the mailman, as may happen, there's a good chance that that heavy vinyl in there will just, like, actually punch through the seams here and just break this bit open again. What you may call a seam split. So that is why, if you want to collect your vinyls in a proper way and want to have them arrive in, you know, good order, you probably want that, you know, them to be taken apart, so that doesn't happen. In fact, some collectors, when ordering records from me, actually make a specific note and ask for it, and to be, you know, taken out of the outer sleeve to avoid that. And I obviously indulge them and just do that on general principles. So this is, you know, if you know, obviously if you order your records from a large distributor or a large company or a large record label, they'll most likely just be shrink wrapped in one package. And the shrink wrap may also avoid the seam splits, maybe. Problem is, I can't do that because, as I said before, I print the lyrics inserts separately for money reasons. Which brings us to the whole money thing. How much does it actually cost to produce a 300 copies of vinyl? Well, it's gotten more expensive these days. The pressing itself is around roughly 1,700 euros for 300 copies. Now, I make heavyweight vinyl that is 180 gram. There's also the standard weight that is 140 gram. Heavy weight vinyl sells a bit better. And the cost difference isn't that huge. Now, they could be a bit cheaper if they were, black vinyl and not colored. But once again, the difference isn't that much. It's a couple of cents per record, basically. Add to that the printing for, say, the lyrics insert. That's another 100 euros. It's like somewhere between 1,800 and 2,000 euros. With the Cardinals Folly one, it's a bit more expensive because the poster costs a lot more. That's more like 2,000 all in all. So between 1,800 and 2,000 euros for 300 copies of vinyl, that gives you a unit price of roughly 6 euros in production, which may lead you to ask, why the fuck is he selling them for 20 euros a piece? Well, now, I'm not good at business. I've never been, probably never will be. But the problem is obviously that I need to break even, at least. I don't want to pay, well, I actually do with some releases, but I want to break even. That means I need to recover those 1,800 euros in a relatively quick time frame, right? So I've kind of, made the calculation that if I sell a third of my records, which can be done in a couple of months, then I'm good. Everything beyond that will make me money. And if you're, unless, a tour comes along or festivals where I can go and sell to people in person, record sales will taper off after a couple of weeks, a couple of months maybe. Just because, there's so much new music being released every single week, and people's attention spans are shortened. If, a release hasn't sold, after like 3 months of selling stuff, it'll be like a couple of sales per month, basically. I don't know, 10 to 20 per month for a specific record, which is not a lot, to be fair. So that's why I charge 20 euros. I used to charge 15 euros for a vinyl, but with production prices rising, I can't afford that no more, because as I've said before, that has to be paid in advance. Vinyl production starts once I pay them the money. And then it takes about 4 to 6 months at the moment to actually deliver that stuff. Which raises the break question, what do? You start pre-orders as soon as you can, and then deal with irate customers that are asking, where the fuck are my records? Or do you wait? And I've still not really found a good solution for that, because, as I said before, this is, in the end, I need to shell out 1,800 euros and then have product half a year, quarter of a year later to sell. And it may come as a surprise, but I don't always have 1,800 euros cash lying around that I can invest in something that I will be able to sell in half a year. I don't have that much cash flow in general as a person. Now, if I had a proper job and would work a proper job, I'd probably have that money, but then I wouldn't have the time to actually do the label stuff, which is something of a quandary. Anyway, now the question is probably like, why does it take so long for vinyl? Why did the prices rise? Why does it have to be colored? Why does it have to be heavy? And so forth. And then we come to something that is important about vinyl. Vinyl is a luxury and lifestyle item. And the plague has hit the market hard in a kind of, well, in a positive and negative way. So what I mean is that vinyl has been a lifestyle item for a long time. I guess like ever since like the early 2000s or maybe even 90s. Because in the 80s, for example, your vinyl is exactly the best, like until the CD comes along, vinyl is the best possible means of copying music. It has the best sound quality, best durability, and so forth, because the alternative is cassette tape, which, you all know that like the sound quality of cassette tapes isn't brilliant. They have their uses, don't get me wrong. They're easy to make copies. They're, easy to actually lose sound quality because they get like all wobbly and whatnot. So the best option is the vinyl record. But what happens then is the CD comes along. The CD is smaller, portable, and has, well, there's obviously arguments to make whether CDs sound better than vinyl or not. I'm not going to go into that here, but in general, the durability is, well, the long-term durability is not exactly higher because CDs kind of fall apart after a couple of decades. But for the first time, because it's like a digital medium, you have no loss in quality because of like your record player not working perfectly, there being dust on the needle, all that stuff that you have with vinyl. It doesn't happen with CDs. So they become really successful. Vinyl loses market shares. Vinyl becomes more of a luxury item, I would say. And there's a problem that happens there, of course, that is, pressing plants close down because the demand has gone down. So we lose that, we lose a lot of factories, which is something we struggle with now when we come back to what happened with vinyl in the 2000s and 2010s. So what happens is, digital stuff happens with the internet. We have first downloads of MP3s and then streaming, which gives you digital sound quality and even higher portability than a CD, because you can just stream on your phone wherever you are, or you just download a couple of gigabytes on your iPod, and you suddenly have 200, 300 records in your pocket, which you can't do with CDs. So the portability advantage of CDs is lost. But the other part is that the thing that vinyl records have is tactile and physical quality. Now let's go with this one for a moment, the Olorin one. As you see, this has a brilliant cover. It's a huge cover. It's a painting. It was done by a friend of the band on like acrylics on actual canvas and done digitized for the production with that cool Balrog, because this is a concept album about Gandalf falling in the fight with a Balrog, and it ends with him returning as the White Rider in Fangorn Forest. It's a super nerdy thing, and I hope I'll be able to talk to some of the band members about how it is to actually do that kind of Tolkien adaptation in music in the future, if that's something you guys want to hear about. I feel it might be an interesting topic, so let me know if that's something you want, and I'll do that. What we have is, it looks cool, it feels cool to have that in your hand, and then you have your lyrics insert there once again, and the actual vinyl. This is the lyric insert. With all the information. It's huge compared to your CD booklet, and then you have that wonderful red vinyl, which looks really cool. Red. Did I say it looks red? Well, it does. Anyway, the point is, if you spend time with your music, to sit down, read the lyrics alongside the songs, because you're interested in that kind of thing, and that's obviously something that is more of a thing in, say, the progressive rock and heavy metal communities than it is in your average pop music scene, where the focus is more on singles and single songs than it is with, rock and metal, where the focus is more on the album. So that's the point where like the physical advantages or like qualities of a vinyl record become a thing. If you have the money and time to waste or spend on listening to music in that kind of way, you want it to look cool, you want to have that physical sensation, and in that area vinyl always has the advantage over CDs. So CDs lose market share once streaming and downloads become a thing, and vinyl kind of gains some of those market shares back, because in a lot of cases you get like the streaming or download code with the record. So you can have your music portable wherever you go and still have the really cool physical item to either show off to your friends or just enjoy as a person, as a collector and whatnot. vinyl becomes a lifestyle item. And we live in a time and place right now, in the West mostly, where lifestyle is super fucking important. It's, it's what we do most of the time. We kind of blast our personal lifestyle and share it out into the void by with Instagram or what have you, showing off our record collections, showing off our new clothes, all of that crazy shit that we do, because apparently that's how life is these days. So vinyl becomes more and more of a thing again. Now what happens then is, and we come to the effect of the plague in a moment here. What happens then is that like large, major labels, because for a long time vinyl was like a collector's thing for small labels, subgenre, underground labels of all kinds of subgenres and genres of music that are not exactly your mainstream, not your major pop artists, but more your, electronic music, rock music, punk rock, jazz, I guess. I don't know shit about jazz though. Anyway, so you have that going on for a long time. They keep the vinyl thing going for DJs who want vinyl to do the vinyl things with that you can do with records as well, and that keeps going. And there's 5, 6 big major vinyl factories in the world that kind of supply that demand of vinyl, and that's kind of fine. But with the rise of popularity of vinyl records as a lifestyle item to show off, a luxury item, the major labels step back in the game. What they have is huge back catalogs of all the songs they own the rights to that haven't been around in vinyl for a long time. What they do then, like companies like Sony, Universal, what have you, they go and they just make like re-releases of those on vinyl because they figure like vinyl's getting big, let's jump in. And they go to those pressing plants that we have and it's like, hey, I want to order 10,000 copies of this or that Michael Jackson album, for example. Now, what do you think the vinyl pressing plant will do when they have the choice between doing 10,000 copies of one specific item or at the same time doing a lot of runs of, which is like 300 runs of 300 no, it's 30 runs, right? I'm not good. Yeah, 30 runs or 33 runs of 300 records each, because what you have to understand is it's a physical process. You cut a lacquer of the music, then you make the test pressings, and if they are accepted, you take that physical thing and then you physically stamp out of the hot vinyl those like 300 or 10,000 copies. I want you to think what they prefer, to take one huge order of that one thing or to do like all these smaller ones for smaller labels. Obviously they prioritize the big ones. Kind of makes sense because it's fucking capitalism is what it is. And suddenly waiting times for us small labels increase a lot. Because there's no, and this is the important bit here, like when we stop buying vinyl in the 80s. Well, I didn't stop buying vinyls in the 80s. I didn't buy vinyls in the 80s because I wasn't, old enough for that shit. Machines were taken apart and so forth, and the knowledge got lost for a long time. There's not many people out there right now that know how to press vinyl. It's a skill a knowledge that we've kind of lost for a while. It's something we tend to forget when we talk about technology. We're so focused on progress. We tend to forget that with every move forward in technology, there's obsolete technologies and obsolete knowledge that once the people that did that job die or retire, no one knows how to do that shit, and we have to figure it out again. So while there are new vinyl pressing plants being built now, new machine parks put back into order and whatnot, it's a slow process because we don't have enough knowledgeable people to do that shit, and not enough, machines at the moment. So we reach that bottleneck, and then the plague hits and makes things even more terrible. How does the plague make things more terrible? First of all, vinyl demand rises. Because suddenly we're all stuck at home, in home office, and we have way more time on our hands in our own place. So we finally actually have time to go and listen to all those beautiful vinyl records that we just bought to show off to our friends when they come to visit us once per year or, post on Instagram. now I actually have time to listen, so we decide to maybe buy a couple more vinyls to actually enjoy that moment of, sitting there, taking the physical thing, putting it on. There's a fascination to physically listening to music, and more people start to enjoy that during the plague, which, COVID, obviously. So demand rises. At the same time, supply drops. Supplying raw materials, which makes waiting times even longer. Why is that? Well, vinyl is obviously a plastic product, so it's made out of oil or parts of oil. Which parts of oil? Well, it's like in petrol production, you have parts of like oil that are sort of waste products of or side effects and side products of petrol raffination. And those are used for plastics, vinyl, packing materials, all the good stuff. Well, all that stuff that ends up in the oceans, basically. Now, during the plague, because we're all stuck at home listening to vinyl records, we're not using our cars anymore. So petrol production goes down, and with that, also the amount of waste products of petrol production that could be turned into those vinyl records that we're all sitting at home and listening to while not driving our cars and so forth. It's a general thing, like the shortage of plastic materials during COVID times is a general thing. Now, vinyl is obviously a very specific area where that kind of hit, but it's harder in other areas, a lot harder. All the plastic for shrink wrapping and whatnot is also affected by that. So at once we have even more demand, more labels making orders, huge orders, smaller orders, what have you, while the machine parks can't actually produce as much because they have problems finding enough plastic to press into vinyl records, which is sort of where we are still at this point. So, for example, the purification one, the one that took the longest, basically. At some point, there's two things here. Once again, it's beautifully green, this one. So what happened there is, it should have been out in originally in March. That didn't happen because I had to switch company for other reasons, and then it was supposed to be there in June, and I delivered all the files in time and everything, and paid in time, and then they had problems acquiring raw materials to actually press the test pressings. Once that happened, and I agreed to that, they called me back and was like, you know what, the original green color that you chose, which was slightly lighter than this one, is no longer available. It will be back at the end of October. Do you want to wait, or do you want to switch to a different color to actually have the pressing sooner? And in this case, I chose to do the color switch because, once again, waiting even longer, who knows, maybe something else would have been out. The next bit that was short at the end was the vinyls were pressed a couple of weeks ago. And then, I'll take it out again. What an idiot I am. Now what you have here, and I'll show this off in a second. Here, what you have here is you have the vinyl in the bag, and we're looking at the bag. These bags are anti-static. They have anti-static plastic in here on the inside. And they had issues, delivery issues with that anti-static plastic. So my 300, 3x300 vinyls were all lying around waiting at the manufacturers for them to get those things delivered again. Once those finally arrived, they shipped them. So that's all these weird side effects of of the plague that we kind of didn't notice before. Or didn't think about because, the other stuff was bad enough, or actually the worst part, I guess. So there's that part of all the problems. Now let's have a bit of a talk about the colors and heavyweight and so forth. Now this is once again connected to the fact that we're talking about lifestyle items. What happens with lifestyle items a lot of the time is at some point they also become luxury items and collectible. And thus, suddenly they become something of an investment, something that I personally find terrible. But, it's fucking capitalism, what can I do? But we come to the point that you limit, I limit my pressings to 300 because that's all I can afford. Obviously, unit price would drop if I would make 500 copies. But I can barely scrape together 1,800 euros to have like a 300 pressing. If I want to raise that to 2,500 euros or thereabouts to make 500 copies, I'd have a bigger problem. So I can't do like larger runs at the moment. Also, selling 300 vinyls is tough enough depending on the band. But the point is, limitation becomes something that is desirable, just like with, trading cards or all the other crazy shit that people start to actually use as an investment or gambling. So what a lot of labels do is they start to make several releases, 100 copies in yellow, 200 copies in green, 300 copies in, white, and then another 500 copies in black vinyl or whatever. So suddenly the colors become something that people look out for. It's like, yeah, I want my vinyl to be colored because it's more presentable, I guess. And we're talking lifestyle here, not just music quality. Technically, there's people that argue that colored vinyl doesn't sound as good as black vinyl. Now, I'm not quite sure if that's the case or not, because I feel that for most people with normal hearing, you don't hear the difference. It is probably there, but most people won't hear. I mean, I've seen Motorhead like 10 times and never used earplugs. My hearing's fucked at this point. I don't care that much about it. Now that's one of the reasons why suddenly, color becomes an issue. Why it is sort of a business decision in a way to make it colored instead of black. Because there's a lot of people that will maybe just buy the thing because it's in a funny color. Same with the heavyweight. You don't need your vinyl to have 180 grams. Once again, there's people that claim 180 grams sounds better. I believe that most people aren't able to hear that. It's just, it sounds cooler to have heavyweight vinyl and not just your regular weight vinyl. If you look at older records that you buy, secondhand that are from like the 70s or 80s when that was just the standard format, they're usually super lightweight and all black because, they're a mass-produced thing for like everyone to consume music on. So nowadays we have that trend towards smaller releases in weird colors and whatnot. So that's sort of why color becomes an issue these days. You can still listen to black vinyl. I still do black vinyl. The next release actually will be Black Again, which is the next Purification album, as I'm waiting for. It's also paid for a couple of months now. I still have no idea when it will arrive. That's just the insanity of it all. So, I hope you enjoyed that part of it. Yes, as I said, these are 3. They were all ordered at like different times, but with all these different delays and issues, they just ended up showing up all at once, and then I had that issue of having to deal with all of that. And here's the other part. I spent most of that money that I did for pre-orders, and there was a bunch of pre-orders here. I already spent that on current other label stuff. And if you ever figured out how much it costs to pay, to ship 200 vinyls all across the world. I had shippings to Australia, to Thailand, to, Scandinavia, the US, Canada. If it's roughly 5, maybe 6, roughly 5 euros per vinyl. Somewhere between 5 and 6 euros per vinyl shipping. So that's 200 times 5. That's a shitload of money to just put it into shipping, just shipping. And we haven't talked about, the shipping cartons, the plastic protective sleeves, all of that stuff as well. That adds up, and with that long wait between, pre-orders and now, most of that money was already reinvested. So I just spent a shit ton of money just on shipping supplies. Basically 1,000 euros just in shipping supplies over the last week, which is insane. And I'm carrying all of that shit down to the post office, and they'll be really happy to see me. But yeah, let's have a quick talk about each of those albums, and then we'll see how the final pile of records will look. And if you want to buy any of those, there's still some left. I'll put links to each of them down in the description. And they'll be shipped next week for reasonable prices, as low as I can make them. Now let's talk about each of them. This obviously is Purification, Perfect Doctrine. It is a interesting painting of the Cadaver Synod. If you've not heard about that one, that's one of the really cool parts of Catholic Church history, when one pope exhumed the body of his predecessor and charged him with heresy. So yeah, they actually put a corpse up for trial. Just Catholic things. Just saying. It comes in this wonderful green vinyl. It is slow, occult doom metal with irreligious lyrics, mostly. It's currently one of my best sellers and a fantastic band, and if all goes well, they'll be here in Germany in December to play at my festival, Riddle of Steel, and then play a bunch of other shows around that. I might do a video on like the Riddle of Steel stuff, but if you're in Germany, or if you're close enough to Germany to want to travel, maybe come say hi at Riddle of Steel. There's going to be a bunch of really cool bands from my label and other labels, and yeah, we'll have a lot of fun there. Now let's talk about this one. This is, once again, like all of these are doom metal this time around. Now this is, as I said before, Through Shadow and Flame by Olorin, which is all about Gandalf in red vinyl. It is more like 90s doom metal, a bit more straightforward, a bit more epic, less reverb, less, it sounds like a lot of doom metal from the 90s sounded. And it is literally just a concept album on Gandalf's fall through the different stages down into the lake at the bottom of that gulf or that abyss in Khazad-dûm, and then fighting the Balrog all the way up the endless stair, fighting him all the way up there on Durin's Tower, and then coming back later on. It's as nerdy and fantasy as it gets, and I love it. It's insane. Okay, both of those bands are from the US. One of them is from Illinois, the other one is from Portland, Oregon. Purification's from Portland. The last one is this one, as I said it before, it's Cardinal's Folly. Holocaust of Ecstasy and Freedom. Now, Cardinal's Folly have been on my label for another album, and this is actually an older one. I said it before, this is a re-release. Now, there was a CD release earlier, but no vinyl. The CDs have been sold out for a while. This was on a different label, on Shadow Kingdom Records from the US. So we figured it makes sense to have like a new edition, because there's people asking for the album, and since there never was a vinyl release, we figured we'll do the vinyl, which shows this really wonderful magenta color for the actual record. But that's only part of it. We also put in that poster. You have seen it. It's a huge poster. It's like 87 by 87 centimeters, which is almost 3 feet by 3 feet, basically. It's huge because it is a re-release, and you want to give people something extra if you decide to maybe buy the album again. So that's what we chose to do there. It's a band from Finland, and it plays rather rowdy doom metal with a bit of punk rock, a bit of classic metal in there, a lot of like occult and weird subject matter in lyrics, horror movies, 70s horror movies, classic occultism, Satanism and whatnot, but in a, not too serious way to look at it. And yeah, they also play at Riddle of Steel this year. They played here before. They're really good friends. I've hung out with the singer for a bunch of times at other concerts. Really cool people. And I'm super happy that they are still with me and helping me, and I'm helping them. And yeah, this is the other part. Like, I do this for for bands that I love and for people that I love. So yeah, if you want one of those, go check them all out. I put Bandcamp links in the description. And if you have other questions on how the label stuff works, any of that shit, just drop them in the comments, and I'll try to answer them either in a follow-up video, or I'll just, comment and whatnot. Anyway, thanks for all of that, and I'll talk to you later, I guess. Until then. So, here we are after a couple of days, because this takes longer than you might think, and we had to reorder different parts of the shipping supply because I calculated it wrong. And this is how around 200 packages of vinyls look. that we will now have to pack into bags and take down to the post office, where the people will be really happy to see me, I suspect. But overall, I'm glad it's over for now. Normally this is not how this goes, because normally it's not like 3 pressings all arriving at once. I hope this was kinda, enlightening to you. If you have any questions or want to actually buy any of those records, I'll link them below. Let me know, and yeah, thanks for all of that. Cheers.